Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to GP Prague. It's Riley and Zimon in the booth here. Zimon Gertzen, the Pro Tour champion. And on your screen, so excited, Zimon, to bring this match to the people watching around the world. Alexander Hayne, the Pro Tour champion, has joined us in the feature match area, along with Gianluca Gazzola on Shardless Bug. We've seen both of these decks a lot this weekend, Zimon, and you've got to be so excited to see how this works out.
Yes, and one reason for that is that I just love to see Alexander Hayne play. He's such a precise player. He always has a plan, which might not be the most obvious, but he really gets there with his decks. And ever since he won the Pro Tour with a really surprising Miracle deck, at least surprising for the Pro Tour competitors at that time.
Yeah, absolutely. Cementing him in a very rare and rarefied club. I know, Zimon Gertzen, you know a couple of the members here as we get underway with our first quarterfinal here. Alexander Hayne opening up with a Delver of Secrets. His Grixis Delver list. Gazola, on the other hand, opening up with a Ponder. Looks like we got the big shuffle going on here as well. So Hayne as well, really impressive performance from him so far this week, and obviously the Grixis Delver list, more or less the top of the pile of the Delver, the different Delver strategies that we see.
Yes, it has basically pushed other three-color combinations out of the metagame almost. There is some people are trying Shardless Delver variants, and you also see the blue-red burn based Delver, but no more. Not much more of other archetypes. But as we see, there's also people trying out Teamer Delver, and with success.
Teamer Delver obviously getting Gianluca Gazzola into the top 8, so he'll be happy with that. But Alexander Hayne here, this reminds me of the old days of Standard with Delver, where you'd blind flip the Mana Leak, get on the board, get in for 3, because Alexander Hayne has gone Delver, Flip Days, Young Pyromancer. What a great start for the Canadian.
Yes, and even knowing about the days doesn't necessarily make it easier for Gazola, because knowing that your opponent has a daze makes this play so much more awkward.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, Gazola may be kind of priced in to trying to counter that Young Pyromancer, but Hayne more than happy to counter back by himself. And here's Force pitching Brainstorm.
I'm not done yet, says Gazola.
No, he's still got some fighting to do, and it looks like he's going to win this particular counter battle, although that has taken a huge amount of resources out of his hand. You can see the rather absurd positioning of Gazola with his graveyard. He's playing it like a dredge player across the top of his battlefield.
For now, things are not too difficult to assess. I think the reason for that might actually be that he's playing quite a lot of Delve cards. Not only Delver of Secrets, but also Hooting Mandrills.
That's right, yeah. And I mean, this is the latest technology we've seen from many of these Delver lists. They're playing Delve cards. We're seeing, decent but pretty unexciting commons that went round and round the draft tables, making their way into one of the most powerful formats in the game.
This is actually the mirror then, right? The Gurmak Angler against Hooting
Gurmak Angler
Mandrills.
against the Hooting Mandrills. Hoot hoot, they say, but the Zombie Fish, of course, has a 5/5 reigns supreme. Ponder here from Alexander Hayne.
The Teamer player is looking to just stabilize here, being on the draw, yes, due to Alexander Hayne being 4th and Gazola being 5th after Swiss. So Alexander Hayne got to choose to play first, which did give him the initiative, and Gianluca is now trying to catch up, with the day setting both players back a turn.
So both players here attempting to, as you mentioned, get back into it in a meaningful way after some early pressure from the Canadian.
Yeah, but the main reason Gianluca is down life is because he had to cast that Dismember.
Yeah, that's true.
Force also took 1 point away, and of course the blind flip on Delver of Secrets. But Gianluca can't be too unhappy having a stable board. Having the blue card draw spells, Ponder, Brainstorm, to get things going. But now, I would be afraid of Gurmak Angler. This is a card that you do need a plan for.
Yeah, because so many of these lists that are playing in Delver don't have a lot of these hard answers. I mean, we saw a Dismember beforehand, but apart from that, there aren't Doomblades running around in this format.
No, actually, it's almost no deck can afford to pay 2 mana for a removal spell. That's not Abrupt Decay.
Yeah.
So
And Abrupt Decay, of course, as we've seen many times this weekend, at a bit of a loss against these 4 and higher cost casting spells.
yeah, which is another reason why they are popular.
So it's back to Hayne now, the Canadian, having a look at the top 3 with Ponder. Most aptly named card in Magic, I would say. And Hayne happy with what he sees, so he draws.
Also, making this play with a fetch land in play. So with a Ponder like this, it's not quite the same as shuffling away unwanted cards with Brainstorm, because then you get to choose from your whole hand. But with a Ponder, if you like exactly one card, you would usually not keep the pile. Or you might not want to keep the pile if it's 2 dead draws. But with the fetch land, you can pick the best card and you get a fresh library.
And this is something for people who might not be very intimately familiar with Legacy. This is something that is a hallmark of the format. Brainstorm, fetch land, Ponder, shuffling your library. And it really like the overall card quality is so much dependent on exactly what kind of thing you can sculpt into your hand.
I mean, you can write books about it, there have been a lot of articles written about it, especially when it comes to Brainstorm. It's just a matter of maximizing the utility of the cards that you have access to, and it's somewhat more important to maximize that utility as compared to maximizing just the sheer amount of cards that you have.
Gurmag, angle of the play for Alexander Hayne, exiling 6 cards from his graveyard. Now, this does 2 things. Obviously, puts him on the board in a major way. The other thing it does, Hayne not playing green, Gazola is. That means the Tarmogoyf is going to come down sooner or later, and there is one in Gazola's hand. That shrinks the Tarmogoyf quite significantly.
Yes, and we've seen this before, how Delve and Tarmogoyf, this anti-synergy can be detrimental for the players relying on Tarmogoyf.
Because I know Gazola is relying on the Hooting Mandrills to get across the line in many instances, and they don't line up too well together. The 4/4 Trample and the biggest, baddest thumper Tarmogoyf often at odds with each other, mate.
Yes, but if you play 2 Hooting Mandrills, you can usually, if you don't want the Goyf to shrink, you can find a way to do it. But of course, Alexander Hayne is more than happy to remove his whole graveyard.
Yeah, he's not going to be relying on those cards at all. They've just acted as 6 Lotus Petals for this 5/5, and it's now Gazola on the back foot trying to find an answer, and he's not long on them, Simon.
It's difficult. It's a 5/5, and we'll see the Tarmogoyf you mentioned.
Tarmogoyf looks like a 3/4 at the moment.
Instant sorceries.
And a land.
I don't think it's a land, it's a Dismember.
Dismember hiding out there as well. So just
only.
a 2/3. So yes, Alexander Hayne certainly getting rid of those lands in his graveyard. He'll be happy about that. And the creatures as well.
There is a Scalding Tarn in play for Gianluca.
Okay.
So it is a 2/3, but a virtual 3/4.
Here comes Gataxian Probe. Let's see what you're working with. Well, read 'em and weep, says Gazola. Look at that. Fire and Ice.
I don't think you say that with that.
I don't think you're saying, well, he's talking to himself. You read them, I'll weep. Brainstorm and a Misty Rainforest here. Alexander Hayne, having availed himself of that information, draws a card. It looks like he's got a pretty nice attack here.
You see how sometimes the very late Gataxian Probe can be even better than a turn 1
of course.
Gataxian Probe. Because
fewer cards to remember, fewer cards to write down, mate. It's always better.
The value. No, I meant, of course, the fact that sometimes the information is much more relevant.
Yeah, no, for sure. In this situation, Alexander Hayne knows now exactly how to proceed. Playing against a 7-card hand at the beginning of the game, there's a number of draw steps to happen. There's a number of developmental stages to take place. But right here, Hayne knows what he's up against, although that Brainstorm might have something to say about that.
Of course. But for example, things like this, you know that this Dismember should target the Tarmogoyf because there's not another creature to be seen for now.
So yes, indeed, Dismember being hard cast here by the look of things, or maybe paying some life?
It appears so, yes. Not wanting to lose too much life.
And a Wasteland as well. Okay, so that Tropical Island is gone. Gazola with another fetch land in hand.
That's very tough because the Wasteland on Gianluca's side is not going to help him against Gurmag Angler. It's one of these examples of both decks wanting to use Wasteland when they are ahead.
Yeah.
But it's not a card that helps you catch up.
No, not at all. I mean, obviously, random utility against creature lands out of Sultai or things like Caracas or Rishadan Port out of Death and Taxes. But no, very much a card that you definitely want to leverage to maintain or solidify an advantageous position.
Interestingly,
sorry, mate.
Yeah, Gianluca actually feels pressured here to already fetch, maybe even casting Brainstorm end of turn.
Yeah.
Potentially just find another land to ice the Gurmak Angler for a turn.
Yeah.
I could see that as a potential line. Wastelanding Volcanic Island of Hayne, icing the Gurmak Angler, hoping to draw into something that deals with it permanently. Although that's difficult in his deck, but you have to hope for something like a two-name Nemesis.
Yeah, a sufficiently large Tarmogoyf would get there as well, and the Tarmogoyf now would be a 5/6.
Because the graveyards have refueled.
Yeah. Yeah, in a very big way. We've seen both creature and land enter with sorcery instant in there as well.
And then maybe just hope that the Alexander Hayne will not be able to cast his red spells.
But here's a daze. Look at that. That's crippling for Gazola there. Missing out on that Brainstorm.
He's far from out of it because ice is still an option.
Force of Will the draw. So Tarmogoyf would be a 4/5 here. But
creature, land, instant sorcery.
Yeah. And it's back to Hayne now. And we're going to see, yes, the play that you mentioned, Zimon, tapping the angler in the upkeep and finding a blue card. Is it a spell snare?
It is, yes. Gianluca had to decide whether to sacrifice his wasteland or to keep it for mana. And he's also not sacrificing Misty Rainforest, maybe in the hopes of being able to survive another hit of the angler. I'm not sure if that's actually realistic. Go down to 1 and not be able to use your mana ever again.
Lightning Bolt the draw for Gazola here. Writing's on the wall, I would think, for the Timo Delver player. He's down to 1. That means no fetching for him.
And that basically means that there aren't many outs for him.
And he's going to pack him up. So there we go. Alexander Hayne, the Canadian Pro Tour champion, very happy to take game number 1. You can see him wrapped with exultation, absolutely beside himself with joy after having won that one. Gianluca Gazzola having a look into that deep, dark, truthful mirror. He's going to find out if he can dig deep enough to equalize things in game number 2. As Alexander Hayne looks at what his options are. We are fortunate enough to have the deck lists in front of us. So, Zimon, why don't you run us through what's going on the Teamer side of the Delver axis?
The Teamer sideboard has 2 Flusterstorm, 2 Submerge, 2 Rough Tumble, and 2 Price of Progress. And then there's a few one-offs. Okay, I guess Red Elemental Blast and Pyroblast we can count as a 2-of. 1 Surgical Extraction, 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 Corrosing Grip, 1 Ancient Grudge, and 1 Sulfur Elemental. A lot of cards that don't necessarily target things in the Grixis Delver deck.
No, not a lot of options there, really. I mean, I like the inclusion of the blasts.
Yes, I think that's a given. You can think about Submerge,
okay.
But you need your opponent to have forest, and I'm not sure if you can guarantee that. You're not certain that your opponent will have the Tropical Island in play. So that seems.
Sorry, mate. What are your thoughts here on the Rough and Tumble? Because of course, Gazola is not playing with any copies of Young Pyromancer, whereas Alexander Hayne is. So that's an option there to clean that up.
That's a good idea. Yes, I kind of like that.
We'll come back to the Grixis Delver sideboard in just a minute, but right now it's Lucas Blowhon facing off against Rodrigo Tagores. Rodrigo on Storm. Looks like he's in the middle of going off with this Past in Flames on the battlefield. Blowhon playing probably what is the fairest deck in the format against maybe the unfairest.
And this looks super interesting. It looks like Past in Flames is on the stack.
Yeah.
With the Deathrite Shaman activation, the only thing that Lucas Blowhon has available to him. Or the only relevant thing at this stage.
Liliana on 6, huge Tarmogoyfs. So, it seems like we're going to have Dark Ritual exiled by the Deathrite Shaman, but then it looks like, Past in Flames is good to go, so we'll see if Tagores can turn this into a W. I'm guessing that 3 on the die is the Storm count. Lion's Eye Diamond, Storm up to 4.
Now the mana.
3 mana in pool. And it's going to be preordained.
But how is I think Rodrigo is just this looks like a desperation attempt because he's facing so much pressure from Blowhorn that he just had to go for it.
Gitaxian Probe, the next one for Tagores here. He draws a card, finds another Gitaxian Probe. Storm counts 6. Lion's Eye Diamond in hand as well. Here's another Gitaxian Probe, down to 4 now. So as you say, bit of a desperation attempt here. Brainstorm. He's going to use up that next piece of blue mana here. Down to 1. 4 life, 1 blue mana. Misty Rainforest. And Blowhorn seems to have F6'd here. I don't think there's any cards in his hand.
No, this is this seems to be the situation.
Tagores hasn't picked up his entire deck while he's shuffling there, leaving something on the... he's going to give that another reshuffle there. Missed out a card on the bottom. As he passes it back to Blowhorn. Now the Storm count goes up with a Brainstorm again here. So no mana in pool for Tagores here.
Multiple Lion's Eye Diamonds, which could have played earlier, but now he might just be out of it. He might just be out of card draw and hasn't found anything to achieve victory.
No, I can't see a lot of action in the graveyard. A little bit difficult to see with that glare. I think Tagore is playing with a lot of foils here.
But also he would have needed the mana of Lion's Eye Diamond, I think. No, he's waiting with the Lion's Eye Diamonds to flashback Past in Flames, actually. It was apparently not flashback, but hard cast.
Yeah.
So let's see if he gets. No, right now it's only the Gitaxian Probe because clearly the other spells he's flashbacked are okay.
Can't get there, Tagores. Unfortunately, the Storm deck, as it can do sometimes under huge pressure, it does fizzle. I mean, Storm, an enormously powerful deck in the right circumstances, can win on turn 1, can win on turn 2 with surprising regularity, but subject to disruption. And unfortunately for Tagores there, it's going to be a win, another win to Shardless Sultai. Back to our original match now.
But also the fact that you just empty your graveyard and then if you don't find the win condition, there's not much you can do. Even if it wasn't lethal, he just didn't have anything left.
So here we are now with Hayne and Gazola. Both of these guys will have updated their decks. Looks like Hayne might be mulliganing here. So let's have a look at what he may have sideboarded. 2 Winter Orb, 2 Painful Truth, 2 Baleful Strix, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Flusterstorm, 1 Pyroblast, 1 Dark Blast, 1 Ancient Grudge, 1 Pithing Needle, 1 Cabal Therapy. Rather neat little package there. And what are you looking at here?
I think I like Baleful Strix.
Okay.
In any kind of creature matchup. Sure, against Hooting Mandrills you take some trample damage, but it blocks Delver of Secrets, also in Insect Liberation form.
Yeah. Obviously a nice clean answer to Tarmogoyf as well.
Exactly. So most creatures you are able to deal with. It doesn't... Well, you have no answer to True Name Nemesis, but that's, I think, something that you can easily raise in this matchup.
One card I'll be curious to see if it comes in is Winter Orb. I think Winter Orb, especially in these tempo matchups where, there's such a mana denial, mana restriction going on anyway, Winter Orb could be a key piece of the puzzle here for Hayne.
I don't expect Winter Orb, to be honest. I think you can play a mana denial plan, but that has to revolve around Wasteland and killing Deathray Shaman.
Okay.
I think the Temur Delver deck doesn't have Deathray Shaman. Is this correct? So actually, you could have a huge advantage if you are if you start off with a Deathray Shaman that the opponent can't answer.
All right. Well, we'll see how things go. Gazola also with the option, of course, of buffering his deck as Alexander Hayne sends a card below decks after a scry. Gazola going to kick things off with a Delver of Secrets. So here we go with game number 2. Grixis and Temur Delver. We'll see if Hayne has a response. Do you force a turn 1 Delver on the draw?
Absolutely.
After mulliganing?
Absolutely.
Yes, you do.
It's not so much about having mulliganed or not wanting to spend 2 cards. A turn 1 Delver is so much better than a turn 5 Delver. It's just worth multiple cards easily.
Here's Gitaxian Probe revealing the red Elemental Blast that you mentioned before, Zimon. That's up in the mix. 2 Ponders and a Tarmogoyf here.
That's a great hand. That's an amazing hand.
Yeah, I think we talk about the tempo game plan of these Delver decks, and right now what Gazola is looking at is playing a 3-4 on turn 2 and then defending it with Red Elemental Blast, and also other ways to, there's going to be ponders.
Yeah, at the same time, just
action.
finding whatever he needs.
But Hayne is going to do some disruption of his own, wasting the Tropical Island here.
And we've seen him employ this plan multiple times. Just going for a strategy which reduces his opponent's options, and then he wants to be the one with the Gurmak Angler in play that he can cast easily.
Yeah.
Because
all of his wastelands.
Because everything has traded, right? So you trade everything, and then it's all about the cheapest, biggest creature, which the Grixis Delver deck has.
Here's a ponder now for Gazola. A Daze was the draw for him. That's an interesting way of looking at it, Zim, and something I certainly hadn't considered in the past. When you cast a Gurmag Angler and you exile 6 cards from your graveyard, the expectation is every single one of those cards has traded for another card. And look at Alexander Hayne's graveyard right now. All of them have Wasteland for a land, a Force of Will for a Delver, and Gataxian Probe replaced itself. That's a really interesting way of looking at it. You're exiling 6 cards that already... It's like a 7 for 1, basically.
Well, not quite, because the other cards... But you did something very relevant with them.
Yeah.
So delving rewards you for being active.
For playing the game,
yes.
yeah. I mean, it's sort of like the Monastery Mentor in any in any spell-based deck. It's rewarding you for playing a game you're going to anyway.
And look how this game is turning out. This is... Legacy at its finest.
Yeah, absolutely. No permanence for either people, and nice full hands.
Both passing the turn.
Gazola finds another land, however.
Rough Tumble, the split card.
Yeah, it's so Rough and Tumble is it's a Pyroclasm that doesn't hit flyers,
so which is great if you're playing Delver.
Delver of Secrets, Vendilion Click, of course, both immune to the Rough and Tumble.
Not so great when you're playing against Delver.
No, certainly not. Although against Young Pyromancer, it cleans up pretty nicely, and I'm not surprised to see Gazola bring it in.
And you can even luckily hit a turn 1 Delver that doesn't flip, plus a Pyromancer.
Gataxian Probe now for Hayne. And Gazola calming down a little bit, not cracking that fetch land straight away. We're going to see it happen now, though, in response to this probe. And it's Red Elemental Blast. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that's a little bit greedy. But Gianluca is assuming that Hayne has no lands and sees this more as a time walk.
Okay. Well, we'll see if he's been proven right here as the Canadian considers what he's going to do for the rest of his turn.
It's very possible that Hayne drew the probe, but if he draws the land next turn, it's not that big of a cost.
There you go. So Alexander Hayne passing the turn without a land. And here's another Delver of Secrets. Hayne, with nothing to say about it, draws a card. He doesn't find another land here. So Gazola now is off to the races. Can he flip the Delver? He cannot. But a Ponder in hand might have something to say about that. Hooting Mandrel's the draw as well. So here's a Ponder.
No green source at the moment for... Wow.
So another Rough and Tumble.
Lands are really rare in this game.
Yeah.
This reminds me of the Teamer Delver mirrors where you would only have like 6 mana producing lands, not counting wastelands, like 6 mana producing fetchable lands. And sometimes you would even see Surgical Extraction being boarded in to play a mana denial plan. So you would wasteland a volcanic and just surgical it and take away all the red sources from your opponent.
Jeez.
Yeah, this was some crazy magic. I think I think Jason Wilson did that at a GP I watched, and it was very impressive.
Well, as I'm looking at these lists here, I mean, there are only between 6 and... it's 6. It's 3 Volcanic, 3 Tropical for Gazola, and 3 Volcanic, 1 Tropical, 1 Underground Sea for Alexander Hayne.
Yeah, almost the same setup.
Yeah, wow. Maybe it might be time. Maybe time to dust off those Surgical Extraction. I mean, many people are playing them anyway. Alexander Hayne's playing too.
I'm sure Alexander Hayne has talked to Wilson about Legacy.
Yeah. Yeah, the two of them known for their very colourful approach to the format. Unfortunately, we're not seeing Tybalt or Hidegetsu's second right in this list. Obviously, probably the last minute cuts for Alexander Hayne there.
So now Hooting Vandals is coming down, and Hayne's still at 0 lands. If he has a force here, we could certainly see it. I think he almost needs it, because even though he has the Gurmak Anglers, if he isn't holding one right now, it's going to be really difficult.
Hoot hoot. The 4-4 trample coming down, and Alexander Hayne really in a tough spot here, as Gazola has been the one to draw out of that sort of board stall. We call it a board stall, the empty board. Better than his opponent here. And true name Nemesis as well here for Gazola. But gets in for 5. Alexander Hayne down to 9. Here's Tarmogoyf. And things are really piling up here. I don't know how the Canadian gets out of this.
No, not with 0 permanence. He found the force finally. 8. If he has a fetch land and a Gurmak Angler, he's on 7. And then he needs the Delver to not flip. Okay, I mean, Daze is just so absurd if you're playing against an opponent with 0 permanence.
Yeah. And we see now Hayne. Final draw step for him, you would think. 4-5 Tarmogoyf, 4-4 Hooting Mandrills, and a 1-1 Delver.
There's other decks in the format which can easily win now, like Goblin Charbelcher or Storm, but
yeah. But here with a full grip and no lands, I don't see how Hayne gets out of this one. He's going to need something very special here. Polluto Delta. Oh, at long last.
And he thought about this turn and decided to continue playing, which can really only mean Gurmak Angler. Or a removal spell, maybe?
Yeah, but I mean, what is there? Dark Blast brought in out of the board isn't going to get you very far.
That's true. Even the removal spells don't really deal with the huge creatures.
Yeah, it's got to be... oh, no, it's the Deathroach Shaman. Okay, very brave. So Hayne is going to go down to 2 here, or maybe just be dead to a Delver flip, and there it is.
I think now he's just fishing for information,
if
you ask me.
Yeah, certainly legitimate to do that. See if there's anything extra, but no, as it is, Hayne goes down. 1-1 between these two here, and you can see the pained look as Alexander goes back to his sideboard, but Gianluca Gazzola will be very happy with that performance.
It's amazing to me what kind of expressions you find in these people after their games.
Oh, they have very expressive faces, Simon.
They look basically the same to me.
No. It's all you got to read between the lines.
Not very good at reading people.
No, of course not.
That's not my specialty.
Not your job, mate.
That's why we have you.
That's it. That's the only reason. Let's have a look at these sideboards once again. I mean, we saw how these sideboard cards came into play, well, into the hands at least. We saw a rough and tumble here and there. What other things do you think are going to be on the players' minds?
I think the important part in Game 3 is to not run your Force of Will into a Red Elemental Blast or a Pyroblast.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of the blowout that will swing the game around.
Let's check in on our other match here. Lucas Blowhon and Rodrigo Togores. We saw Togores sort of fizzle a little bit last time while playing Storm. Blowhon, on the other hand, playing a very fair game of Magic after suspending an Ancestral Visions. Looks like that Shardless Agent may have hit him to Turak, perhaps?
Yes, there's one in the graveyard. Not the art that we usually see.
No. That's the black ghosty things hanging out. Infernal Tutor. Cast to find another Lotus Petal here.
I love this about Infernal Tutor, that sometimes you don't play it when you're hellbent.
Yeah. Yeah, it can be very helpful in finding the cards that you need every now and again. If you've already got a decent hand, you just need that one more piece. Sometimes you can fetch it out.
Yeah, or if you draw multiple tutors. There's a bunch of things that are going on.
So the agent comes in. And it's going to be Tarmogoyf as well. So Blowhorn putting Togoras on the clock.
Yes, but not too much disruption here either. With the Deathrite Shaman, you kind of have to think about which cards you want to exile should a Past in Flames hit.
Lotus Petal, and here's Ad Nauseam. So Togoras is looking like he might want to go off here.
But it's interesting. He's like in game one where we got a glimpse. He is opting to delay his line-side diamonds.
Yeah.
So he's waiting with that to get more information about if he's going off this turn, if he wants to discard his hand, maybe even to make Past Flames more potent, and so on.
So Ad Nauseam, an absurdly powerful draw engine, essentially a 5-mana instant that lets you basically do a Dark Confident trigger as many times as you like. You can reveal cards from the top of your library and put them in your hand, and they do damage to you equal to their converted mana cost. So at the moment it's 1, 2, 3, 4 damage. Still at 4. Still at 4. 5.
6.
Or 6, sorry. 7. And here's a duress for 8. So Tagora's down to... Now is the critical point. Because Tagora's is at 5, any other cards might be Dark Petition. And the curve stops out at 5 there in most Storm decks. And it looks like Tagoras is playing it safe, not interested in maybe killing himself with a Dark Petition there. So, 5 cards... 5 life for Tagoras, 1,000,000 billion cards. We're going to kick things off with a Gitaxian Pro by the look of things. Storm count currently 3.
That's also another reason to keep life,
Uh-huh.
to be able to cast cards like this for their Phyrexian mana cost. The Sensei's Divining Tops, the multiple Sensei's Divining Tops are interesting to me. He has one in the main deck, which is classic for Storm, but he also has another one in the sideboard, and that has to be to have a good way to deal with, or not to deal with, but to circumvent discard spells, Home to Taurex and so on, like float cards on the top of your deck.
So, Tagora is in the process of attempting to go off, and you can see Blowhon there, giving him a hand in keeping track of everything. But let's flip back to our original match here. As you can see in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen, Alexander Hayne facing off against his opponent, Gazola here.
And just in time also to see the hand of Gianluca. Not quite. We were a little bit too slow. Rough Tumble I caught, but not the more relevant cards, unfortunately.
Ponder here. For Alexander Hayne. Looks like he's going to take the shuffle. Let's see what he can find. The mana denial plan not working out for him last time. Zimon, during the Swiss, we saw him absolutely crucify an opponent in the exact same position, more or less, as we saw last game. But at the end of the day, it was Gazola who drew out of it better.
Yeah, but it could have gone the other way. I would say, just based on the fact that both players were drawing and saying go, it was more or less 50-50 who would find their land first. And clearly, that player would be in a great advantage.
Volcanic Island, the play for Gianluca Gazzola here. We'll see how things pan out in this, very much in this developmental stage of the game. Both players perhaps looking to stick an early threat, but at the moment, we're not seeing anything like that just yet. It looks like it might be Ponder for Gazola, and yes, indeed, it is.
Yes, which is clearly a good card, but. Still, on the other side of the table, you're relieved to see something that doesn't impact the board in the very early stages.
Yeah, turn 1 Delver often can be a bit of a nightmare for opposing players, but Haynes dodged that particular bullet this time. On his side of things, here's the Delver on turn 2.
Yes, and this could represent many things. Also, with the polluted Delta up and immediately being fetched. He could have counter magic up now. If you have a hand that is very reactive and has only one threat, like the Delver, sometimes you actively delay it for a turn or two.
Okay.
To be able to protect it.
All right. That makes good sense here because, Hayne is going to look to ride this Delver to victory, and we're going to see maybe a Ponder to set up the flip here. That's what we're going to see here, and there's a very, very good chance that Alexander Hayne's Delver, should it live, will flip next turn after this Ponder.
Yes, and that also means that the rough part of Rough Tumble is not going to be great. Gianluca clearly can't daze the ponder here. He would set himself back too much, tempo wise, and Hayne, I think, very clearly playing around Wasteland. He's getting two identical lands rather than exposing his another, like a red source, to a Wasteland.
So Gazola goes searching and finds Tropical Island on top of his library. Shuffles up after that Misty Rainforest. Fire and Ice in his hand as well. That's a nice answer to the Delver.
Yes.
But it's going to be rough and tumble here. No? Fire and Ice. Okay. 1-1. Does Hayne have a response? He does not. So away goes the Delver with a little bit of extra damage there, a little forked bolt.
If you are concerned about young Pyromancer, it makes sense to keep the rough, and the rough will also deal with another Delver, but you are forced to cast it immediately, which is a small price to pay.
Here's another Delver. Looks like Alexander Hayne might have drawn a Daze. Certainly if he had a Daze, you would have deployed it last turn.
Yes, and we knew that he would put an instant on top of his library.
So that makes good sense there.
Doesn't have a third land, though. Or didn't play one. Both is possible. Delver decks traditionally definitely able to operate on 2 lands only, but you generally want them to be covering all 3 of your colors.
Brainstorm in response to this Wasteland activation. Hayne's going to draw 3 cards, see what he can find, and hopefully set up a Delver flip for him next turn, although I could see as well the Delver eating it. If Gazola's got some kind of counterspell to protect his rough and tumble here, he has double Daze.
If you're sitting on 2 dazes, it might actually be more important to develop your own mana if you have the chance. If you just have a normal land drop, rather than wastelanding. It's once again one of these situations where your opponent has missed a land drop, so naturally you assume I should wasteland. But is it really the right play to wasteland one of the lands that the opponent has a copy of? Or is it better to wait until they search out the red source and then take care of that one?
Now this Gurmag Angler would be looking pretty good. Alexander Hayne has played around a single Daze with by leaving the Polluted Delta up, but I don't think he can beat the double Daze here.
Oh, let's see what happens. He can pay for the first. He has still 3 cards in hand.
Okay.
Maybe 4. And Gianluca is playing...
he does have a Daze of his own in hand.
See, and Gianluca is paying a huge price if he really goes for double Daze there. 2 cards, 2 land drops. When you only have 2 lands in play, I think that's hefty. On the other hand, how do you beat the fish? The zombie fish.
The zombie fish is very mighty indeed. I think that there's a Dismember hanging out somewhere, but not a lot of answers in Gazola's 75 against the zombie fish. Away goes the Polluted Delta here for Alexander Hayne. See what he finds here. It's going to be a volcanic here. And this is, I think, one of the reasons we saw the double underground sea being fetched there, because Hayne knew that he really wanted to resolve this, or at least be able to cast his Gurmag Angler here.
Yes, and it, like I said, it did play around Wasteland, putting the opponent in a tough spot. Do you Wasteland or do you wait? And giving your opponent these chances to make small mistakes or give you tiny edges is exactly what Hayne is demonstrating here.
Baleful Strix, the follow-up play now after the Angler gets in for 5. And we're going to see Red Elemental Blast in response. It's going to counter the Baleful Strix, of course, a blue card.
We could also easily see Hayne just always have that one fetch land open. And that way almost negating the power of Daze completely.
Force of Will, the draw for Gazola. Excuse me. As the Insectile Aberration takes to the skies, a 3/2 flyer.
And then shuffling away Force of Will because the biggest threat is already on the table.
A little bit of a scry type effect there with the Delver.
Yes, sometimes even relevant if you have two of them. You get to flip one at least if you...
Yeah, we used to see that back in Innistrad Standard with the with Thought Scour.
Forked Bolt. So now a combination of Forked Bolt and Lightning Bolt would do the job.
Insectile Aberration, equalizing the life totals at 12 apiece.
You mentioned Dismember as an out to Gurmag Angler, but the unfortunate reality is that the more often you get hit by it, the less likely you are to survive your own Dismember.
Yeah, that's right. That's a great point.
This is the turn to draw it, otherwise it's just going to be a dead card.
So, Hayne with a Misty Rainforest. And it's going to be Young Pyromancer for him here.
Yeah, that's why...
Gazola sitting on 2 days. Is that even 3 days?
No, 2 days, Forked
2
Bolt and a
days.
land, but the... Alexander Hayne just hasn't given him a chance to really use them. The play you mentioned, double dazing the angler,
Yeah.
wouldn't have turned out much better.
No.
But at least you would have used your cards, maybe feeling better about the situation. I think because Hayne has had a days of his own and still has it. Oh, True Name Nemesis.
Ponder, True Name Nemesis, and Wasteland are the cards here for Gazola.
But this is where, once again, if you are in the driver's seat, your situational counter magic is going to be better.
Yeah.
Because the opponent under pressure doesn't have the liberty to keep open the mana.
They have to extend into something, a little trap that you prepared for them. And Gazola here can't just slam this True Name Nemesis off 3 mana because it'll immediately eat a daze.
And this is why having a good game plan, a good strategy, especially in the mirror match, where mana can be so constrained, is absolutely key.
And you would see situations where double daze, I mean, being able to daze for days is actually very important in many situations, but Hayne just hasn't exposed a single opportunity where he's going to get wrecked.
Yeah, and if the roles were reversed, or if the game goes differently, or it starts differently, then suddenly the daze is one of the best cards you can have.
Forked Bolt the play here for Gazola, not wanting Hayne to get too much value off of the Young Pyromancer. Hayne has the option of a hard cast daze here, should he choose to do it. We might see that happen. That'd be very interesting if so. Finds a Volcanic. And what's the play here for Hayne?
Does he only have one card in hand?
Is it one card? Well, they're very neatly stacked if not.
You could daze here if you think that that it's not going to do anything ever again. But Brainstorm is much.
Yeah, Brainstorm's a real nice one. Getting value from the Young Pyromancer in response to this Forked Bolt here, and being able to go wide is going to be a nice way as well to, in case that Young Pyromancer, that True Name Nemesis comes down. It's going to be nice to be able to go as wide as possible then.
Very nice. A very nice interaction in Legacy is when your opponent brainstorms with a fetch land up, with exactly a fetch land up, you can daze the brainstorm, which means it will still resolve, but you deny your opponent the option to shuffle their deck afterwards.
So we see Alexander Hayne cast his daze against Gianluca's daze. It's dazes for days.
He in this case he knew that how the stack would turn out, and just wanted to make sure that he got another token out of the deal.
And we're going to see this original daze paid for. Will Gazola go for daze number 3? Wednesdays. Having a good old think about it here. You can see the bloke there, eyes agape, volleyballs flying all around him. And Gazola really having to consider his option here. Ponder, the trop that he returned to his hand, and the days in the hand of Gazola. And here is days number 2, or days number 3 all up. But the double days is going to kill the Pyromancer, going to mean the Brainstorm doesn't resolve. But it leaves Hayne now with 2 1/1s.
Exactly, and that's lethal. And Gazola also wants to crack that fetch land if possible.
Yeah.
So now he might be in a position where he blocks an elemental token, goes down to 1. So the Wooded Footers in play is actually worthless.
So what's Gazola's play here?
I don't think chump blocking is an option.
Well, it looks like that's the way that he's going to go there, Zimon. Your disagreement?
It is an option. I take that back. But it's I think your chances of winning are not higher now that you've done that. Maybe knowing that you're drawing True Name Nemesis actually made it necessary to play that way. I'm just afraid that with the True Name Nemesis only being a pacifism, a virtual pacifism for Gurmak Angler, you're still losing the race to the elemental tokens.
Of course, 2-turn clock with those elemental tokens. I mean, the 3-1 is a nice little roadblock there, but Hayne's in no worry with his life total. He's on 9. Gianluca doesn't have time to peel the cards he needs here before those elemental tokens are going to end things very quickly. So with 3 mana available, we are going to see, here it is, True Name Nemesis.
Hayne also has a card, is also going to draw a few more to close things out, and he knows that the Nemesis is has to block and has to stay back.
Yeah, we're not going to see any attacking from the little 3-1 there. As the
ignoring double bolt scenarios.
Oh, single bolt is enough. There we go. Alexander Hayne gets himself into the semi-finals. Congratulations to the Canadian Pro Tour champions. Commiserations to Gazola. I tell you what a weekend he's had, though. Of course, going home with a fat stack of cash, a Pro Tour qualification, and a sack full of pro points as well. So he can't be unhappy with how he's gone so far.
Yes, that's not the first thought that comes into your mind when you lose in the GP top 8, but definitely a great achievement.
Yeah, well done indeed to Gazola, but hearty congratulations go out to Alexander Hayne after finding his way into the semi-finals. I mean, he's no stranger to success. He's won GPs up and down the globe, and he's gonna make a hard run at it here. Simon Gertzen, our quarterfinals are done and dusted. It's been a great pleasure to have you, but more magic coming your way. Tim and Matej coming up with the semis before much longer. Stick around. We'll be back with GP Prague very, very soon.